Hi, and welcome to Megan's Mystical Mashup, a conversation about life, the universe, and anything in between. I'm Megan Rounds, and welcome to the show. Today's guest resides in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with her 14-year-old Katie and 3 fur babies, Zip Zap, Zoe, and Harmony. Her grand dogs, Sweets and Piper, and grand cat, Remix, all reside in Arizona, as does her 28-year-old daughter, Macy, who teaches for the CRIT, Colorado River Indian Tribe. She is one busy woman as owner and operator of 3 businesses, Pittsburgh Photon Studio, private residential cleaning, and Soul Navigator, which entails intuitive readings and soul navigation. She is also a Reiki practitioner and integrated bodywork facilitator. An intuitive empath, spirit channel, with experience in all the clairs, she's been a member of the Lightworkers Lab for 2 years, spending most of her time here in the main lab and in the lab light room. Please give a warm Lightworker welcome to Kelly Halaja. Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Oh, happy Saturday to you, too. Oh, my goodness. I feel like I've been talking for all this time, because I have, but I'm so happy to have you here today.
I love your good news. Oops,
awesome.
Sorry.
I try to tie it in as much as I can in some respects, at least the story, right before bringing you on. And so, knowing you have cats and have had some dogs and things like that.
Absolutely. It was awesome. I love the tire idea. That's pretty cool.
I know. And in Brazil, especially, but I can also see a huge benefit to that here. It'd be just really wonderful to see. I would like it if that person actually expanded, because I would imagine it would be very beneficial for him to make some more money.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Well, as you know, the first question I like to ask guests with the first appearance on the show is really about your spiritual journey. If you could tell us a bit about that journey and, add in some pieces around how you found the Lightworkers Lab, that would be nice too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've thought about this over the past 24 hours. Actually, it's been a little less than 24 hours as to where to start, but
sometimes that's best. Just
to go with it. And so really, I as most of us here, I would imagine, was a very sensitive child. I was very intuitive. I was very, I saw people. I saw spirit. I physically encountered them as a child, but shut that down very young. I came from a very closed-minded family, very Bible-belting. Everything was the devil. Anything that could not be explained was the devil. So, a lot of that got shut down for me, which internally ended up causing, some decision-making issues over the years, and just things that I knew were right, but were told were wrong. So, my journey starts when I really had to think about, when did it truly start? It started at a very, very young age for me. However, I wasn't aware. But I do know, my first encounter, I would say, of realizing that there was, other than seeing I've come to learn now that it was my great-great-grandmother that I would see in my bedroom room at night with me, standing over my bed, very, just almost like a guardian. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would cry to my mom that, that she's here again. And it was just always a nightmare, honey, go back to bed. But I've learned through the years that it was not just a nightmare.
Right.
But it was when my grandmother passed away. If I had to really narrow it down, when I was 6, I lost my grandmother, and my grandmother was pretty much like a custodial parent to me, because my mom was a single parent. She was in nursing school. She was working. She was a busy woman. And so I spent a lot of those 6 years with my gram. So she was like my parent. And when she passed away, I can remember it so clearly that we had to leave our house and go over to her house. My mom was the eldest of the children. So my mom was making the arrangements. We lived closest to her. And I remember sitting on my grandmother's bed that night and hearing all of the going-ons out in in the main room, you know, and I was in my grandmother's bedroom. My mom had to put me back to bed because it was awful late. And I remember just sitting there feeling like my grandmother was right here sitting on the bed with me. Now, at this point, I couldn't see her. I couldn't physically see her, but I felt her comfort. I didn't understand at such a young age how I was still feeling her and kind of hearing her, because I could hear, you know, clairaudiently. Now we understand what that means. At 6 years old, I thought I was losing it. But I honestly could like feel her presence, and I could almost hear her. When I say almost, because it was like it was faint to me, but it was like in my mind, her saying, I'm still here, baby. I'm still here. And when that happened, you know, the few days preceding that, I was in the funeral home and standing at my grandmother's casket. And everybody was just, you know, grieving. It was just a hard time for our entire family, because my grandmother was like the matriarch that held everybody together. You know, she was the glue. And nobody was at the casket with me. And I was standing there, and I saw this little bit of moisture on the side of her mouth, you know, I think just from the process of what they do to the body. And I got real excited, and I felt this rush go through me of like, I'm still here. Like, I felt that. And I remember turning around and announcing to the entire funeral home at the age of 6, don't worry, she's still here. She's just sleeping, because that was the message I got. I'm just sleeping. I'm still here. I could hear her. I could feel her, and I could hear her. And as soon as I made that public PSA to the entire funeral home, they got me out of there, like with the quickness. You know, they snatched me up, they took me down to the coffee room, and that's where I was to stay for quite a while following that. So that taught me at that moment to fear death, you know, and to fear what I knew to be true, because I felt her, you know, but they pushed that away from me. So I shut it down. So to be honest with you, when I really, you know, I look back now and I know that was a gift from my grandmother to let me know who I am, you know, and what my abilities are. But being so young, you know, we don't recognize or understand that. So it probably wasn't, Megan, until several years later, obviously. I mean, my journey kind of is like a weaving roller coaster.
Mine too. Love that.
Yeah, right. Right. You know, I lost my mom got sick when when I was 13, and she had a massive heart attack. So she was terminally ill at that stage. And about 10 years, she lived with half of a beating heart, because all 4 chambers, 2 of her chambers were completely done.
My. Okay.
So she was very blessed to have 10 years with us that she shouldn't have had. But when she died, now, again, that the night that my mom passed away, I had known my mom's terminal illness for 10 years and consciously aware that her time with us was limited. So I was living in a total state of fear and reaction for most of my teenage years. You know, I was running from the fear. I was engulfed in the fear. I was just, now when I look back at poor little Kelly,
oh my gosh,
I see that fear, how much that fear like really was a compass for her life. And that's really hard to kind of sometimes stomach. But at the same time, I learned a lot. But when my mom passed away, I had a dream. In all those years that I knew she was sick, I never consciously dreamt that she died. But the night that she died, I dreamt that she died. Wow. And she was in the casket, just like my grandmother, at the same funeral home, everything. And I woke up, and right prior to that, we had lost a neighbor lady who was close with us. And so in my dream, all of the markers, all of this stuff said, you know, Betty, who had passed away. But when I got to the casket, it was my mom. And so that's what woke me up that morning to find my mom dead.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so yeah, it was pretty bizarre. I mean, I woke up, I was covered in sweat from head to toe. And that whole morning just was it was rough, as you can imagine, but it was also very, very eye-opening for me, because I felt my mother's spirit worked through me. I heard it. Like, all of my clairs that morning were on, like, steroids. So I felt my mother's guidance. I heard her, and I realized, and it took me a lot of years, because I was 22 when that happened. So probably not until I was about 36 or 37 is when I really kind of had my wake up into my spiritual development, so kind of just giving you some point, like some marks on my timeline there, that I knew I knew I was different. I knew I had abilities that the rest of my family didn't acknowledge or didn't practice, but I shut it all down. And then even after my mom died, I was in such a state of grief for many a years that I did not have the capacity to really explore my own spirituality. So it wasn't until I was about 36 or 37 when I lost my job, my career fell apart, and I was forced into an awakening. I say, I was cursed into consciousness. So it was at that point and I'm very grateful, because when I lost my job, I worked for a chemical company that produced plastic, and one of my very close friends was my cube mate. She sat next to me in the cube, and about, I don't know, 6 months prior to losing my position there, she bought me for Christmas the You Can Heal Your Life package by Louise Hay. Yeah. So I, after I lost my job, and at that point I had worked so hard to have this great career, and I'm in college, grad school, you name it, you know what I mean? I had gone through all my degrees and was just overachieving, because I also was a teenage mom. So we had that on two things. And so I didn't want to be any more of a statistic, so I was really pushing myself in the matrix to excel, succeed, make my family proud, make my mom proud, even though she was no longer here. I didn't want to leave a legacy of shit, so to speak, excuse my French, but so I was really pushing, and it was, I think, Spirit's way of saying enough is enough. Like, this machine can't go on like this much longer, so some unfortunate events occurred, but those events actually catapulted me into my awakening. So in reading Louise Hay's book, that's what did it. And I'm grateful for the rest of my life, from my friend Lisa. She's part of the lab here too. Lisa Evans, who bought me that gift package, and that it changed my life. So at that point, that would have been 2010, right? I think is when I lost the job, 2010. And I started reading that book, and I had time on my hands. I started being able to focus on me for the first time ever in my life. Did I ever take time to spend on me?
Good
right?
for you.
So, yeah, and it was rough. But I'll tell you, when that happened, everything changed. My outlook on life changed. My relationships changed. My marriage fell apart. Like all kinds. It just was like a volcano went off of my life.
But almost, it sounds like in order to set you right, like to
Absolutely.
recalibrate.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it was not until then, and that took quite a few years. You figure 2010, I left my husband in 2016. So for 6 years, I was really, trying to figure things out. Like, okay, this is a lot. And Spirit was guiding me. I mean, that's when really, like, I feel like my clairs all came back too. So then I thought I was losing my mind all over again, right? Because they were kind of shut down and quieted. And I didn't give a lot of attention to the signs and wonders and the magic that was going on around me, because I was not able to see it.
Yeah.
I was too consumed in survival,
Yeah, totally get that.
So, yeah, it's not a fun space.
No, it's all uncertainty during that time. It's a huge time frame for transitioning. But what I'm hearing is that it's all of the things that have happened in your life have been,
oh boy,
almost there for you when the time came to awaken, and that all of it combined.
Absolutely.
I mean, each one seems to have a time frame of processing, synthesizing all that information. I have to tell you, this is the first time that I've noticed this when doing a mashup, but I am getting major chills in a positive, angelic kind of spirit way, and it's making me think your people are here.
Thank you.
So I just want you to know that, and they send lots of love. You know this already, but still, this is the first I've been visited that I recognized during a show. So this is super cool.
Yay. And it is really cool because I kind of asked for them to come in for us too.
So did I.
You know, that, so they listened. See,
yes,
that's all we have to do is ask, ask. You know, so that's awesome. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. So yeah, that's kind of where I, got led to the Lightworkers Lab, was during that time from 2010 in 2016. Like I said, I left my husband, and I was knee deep in the rabbit hole, man. I'm telling you what, from 2010 till even now, I'm still like a research and learning junkie. I like to, like a closet nerd, I tell people all the time, because I love to study and I love to learn. And that was what led me. I found Crystal on YouTube. So when I was going through the separation and I was getting all these clairs back in my awareness, I found Crystal on YouTube, just researching different things, and started watching her stuff on there. And then she created the lab, and I joined the lab. I think, I don't know, I want to say it was probably the summer maybe of 2017, June-ish, July timeframe maybe.
Sure.
So joined there, and that's a wrap, and then you guys are stuck with me.
Lucky for us.
Thank you. Lucky for me too, because I tell you what, a lot of that time period was very, and still today, we're still moving forward and not fully divorced yet, but going through the separation process and living different places and moving on in that regard. But that having the lab there for me at the time was so imperative, because I had, I needed that outlet to keep me centered, to keep me understanding that I wasn't losing my marbles. We've got an imposter on the screen here. Sorry. But, I mean, it was, I'm very grateful for Crystal and all of the, the group for their camaraderie and for their patience and for helping us all to learn about ourselves. I didn't have that family growing up. So it was kind of like finding your people,
Yes, exactly. And what a refreshing, just and wonderful feeling to know, that there is this group, and they're supportive and they're uplifting and positive and loving and and are accepting of things that pretty much other people just don't get.
Right.
And some don't want to get, and some get fearful about it. And it's so nice to be a part of a group where you can say what's going on and people get it. They understand.
Yeah,
Like, all right,
absolutely.
rock on, like the opposite response than we get from other people sometimes.
Right. Yes.
So was there anything, do you remember any of the videos that you watched of Crystal's that were impactful for you at that time? And if you don't, that's okay. But
yeah, no, I do. Actually, of course, one of the big ones that I think we've all probably at this point have viewed it, was at the time when I left my husband in 2016. Trying to think the time frame. It may have been, there's been in 2016 in the Dominion video.
Oh,
I mean, let's talk, because I had moved out. I had moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, and the dynamics of this building were just the energy, and it was, it was really ugly. There were some ugly tenants in the building, and I don't mean looks wise. The energy was very, it was very hard. It was
Yeah.
not a healthy energy. And I had gone through some medical stuff that year as well, and was laid up pretty much for a few weeks, and so my whole system was weakened. I was gaining strength in all other areas of my life, in moving out of this somewhat of an abusive relationship. So like I was building. Well, then I got hit with this traumatic, medical stuff going on, and was laid up, and all of that energy. When we talk about psychic attack,
Yeah.
I literally was under psychic attack, and I never fully understood that until that happened to me. I never realized my ability to receive the daggers, if you will, until that happened to me personally. So in that time period, I had, was feeling all of this craziness coming from these other tenants in the building, and was just really, I couldn't even go into my apartment, Megan. I mean, it was so strong that I called one of the good neighbors over to say, I need you. I need to have clarity right now. And I need somebody else to walk into my apartment and tell me what you feel, because I can't go in there right now.
Yeah.
It was a very dark, ugly feeling that I had. And my neighbor actually validated that for me. And
Wow.
she's like a ghost hunter. So she's like, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get this, whatever this little machine is that records shit.
Sure. Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to go, because I feel
EVT.
it too. Like she's not even, a very spiritual person per se, but she went and got her little machine, and she let it run out there, and we sat outside for a few minutes, and she's like, okay, it's not picking up anything. So I don't really, I don't think there's anything bad in there, but I could feel it. So she's like, but I do feel what you feel. So I went in there and I doused that apartment. It was a 2-room, 1-bedroom apartment, so 2 rooms. I doused that. I set a bonfire of Palo Santo off in there, and I was diffusing some high vibrational oils, and I just went in with the intention and by the grace of God, to get this place straightened out. This is my space. So I did this practice, and I didn't quite understand how, what I was being led to do. I've always burned Palo Santo, like it's like my best friend. So that wasn't anything different, but this time was different with that intention.
Yes.
And it was so funny because right after that, I was speaking to another friend of mine, and she said, you got to check this out. And she sent me Crystal's Dominion video.
Oh,
right
very
after
cool.
Right after I did that. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's exactly what just happened. And after that, everything felt better in that place. It felt better.
I have to say, okay, so many of you know that I like words, and one of my favorite words is serendipity. And I am hearing so many serendipitous moments in your story,
Yes.
from getting the Louise Hay package at a time when you were receptive and open and really
Right.
needed that message, and
Absolutely.
having a ghost hunter kind of neighbor as well.
Right.
And being, given the Dominion video right at that perfect moment. And I'm sure there are a bunch of other things too, but those are the ones that are really standing out to me as just really incredible.
It's true. And when we take the time, I feel like so many times we're so busy in that survival mode that we don't really recognize those synchronicities.
Yeah.
We don't take the time to appreciate them. A lot of times in hindsight, we go back and we see and we can review and say, oh, well, there it was. Oh, look, that happened there. Oh, look, God was with me here. We can go back and look. But when we're not centered, and we're not, we're too busy in that survival mode to see the outside external, all the existential stuff that's going on beyond our space is really here to help us.
Yep.
It's here to guide us. So yeah, that was, that video for me really, if I had to say the one thing, and that's because it was such an impactful time, that in spirit was leading me to take dominion when I didn't even know what the hell dominion was.
Yeah.
You know, and again, Lisa, my friend Lisa, who got me that Louise Hay book. I hope she's watching. I don't know if she's here today or not, but Lisa is one of those blessings that were dropped into my timeline. And it was the coolest. It was so cool. Like, I met her at my corporate job. And when I was young, when I was a wee little one, we had a neighbor lady that I was very, very close with. Here's another synchronicity for you. You'll love this one. We had, I had a neighbor lady who just loved me. You know, I was her little baby. And excellent. My mom, she would always let me go over to Miss Hannah's house, and Miss Hannah's kids would dote all over me. I was like the little superstar to them, and I loved it because I was getting all this attention all the time. Yeah. And nobody could say or do anything to little Kelly because Miss Hannah would get them. You know, she was awesome. She was a wild and crazy, crazy woman, and I loved her to death. So Miss Hannah, and I had worked with Lisa now for several years, and Miss Hannah passed away. So, of course, it's, you know, many years later, and I go to Hannah's funeral, and there's Lisa. And I'm like, what are you doing here? She's like, Hannah's my aunt. That's my mom's sister. And I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, that's super cool.
And so that was, you know, that was before we worked closely, right before I lost my job. We were in different departments at the time. So, yeah. So, like, her and I have had that connection, sort of, like, you know, we've been tied to be friends for many, many years and way beyond either of our understandings. And she's been one of the greatest teachers and confidants of mine, you know, since. But she got me that Louise Hay book, you know, she's like, hey, there's this Dominion video. So she's like my soul sister.
Very
like,
cool.
We keep each other in line.
Yep. God, you know, you and I are both blessed with that. Julie Ralph is mine, and she's somebody that I've worked with. I met her when I lived in Madison, and we were both phlebotomists at a plasma center.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved to Washington State, and when it was off the grid, well before it was a lot easier to be off the grid, for months. And she always tracked me down. And I'm really, really thankful for that, because at the time I was really not somebody to keep in contact with people from my past. But she was like, not going to have any of that. She's just like, no.
Not letting it happen.
You know,
And I'm very glad for that too, Julie Ralph.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, she's the person who had, she'd been talking to me about the lab for a lot, and Crystal, for a long time before I actually had joined. It needed to be, I joined for a particular program, and I think it might have been the Blueprint, which has turned into something else now. But it was something, it had to tie into my left brain somehow, I think, in order, you know, I had awakened, or at least started my awakening, but I was still very left brain oriented, and somehow, you know, Julie was just like, you need to be in here. So, you know, I'm like, okay. And I'm
good for her.
So thankful for that, because it's been life-changing for me to be a part of this lab, and to meet all of you wonderful people, and just so many just amazing experiences that I've had in my own life as a result of being a part of this lab. So, but it's all because of Julie. She's been that person she's introduced me to metaphysical and psychic and spiritual concepts that I would never have heard, most likely, elsewhere, and loaned me just a ton of books that I think I wasn't ready for at the time. But, you know, she's like, well, just when you're done, return them. I don't need them now. So I held on to them for years. And it's like, and, you know, it's years later, but I'm just like, wow, this so resonates with me, but I couldn't hear it before. I just wasn't at that place in my journey to be able to get it.
That's right. That's right. And I think we find that, you know, there are things that, like I said, hindsight is 20/20. Like, and you go back and you look like, no, I wasn't ready for that then. But, you know, 5 years later, look what happened, you know, so it's really interesting. And I love that you say, you know, like Julie's been that person that's been there and pushing, or kind of exposing you to a bigger and better world out there, you know. And we have, I believe that we have, you know, or we have our soul families, and we're, you know, we're soulmates, or however you want to call them, earth angels. I mean, there's many different words, you know, spirit guide, however you want to look at it. And they are, I do believe we have them in the living.
I do too.
And I absolutely know that to be true. And it's not always people that we personally know either. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I found that I had a trip to this is another manifestation of mine a few years back that just blew my mind wide open. And one of the I had an opportunity. It was right when I was waking up. Actually, it was 2000. I'm not even sure. I know it was for my 40th birthday, so 6, 7 years ago now. Seems like forever ago. Honest to God, it seems so long ago. But wow. So I manifested this trip to Jamaica. Like, long story short,
Cool.
there was all kinds of details within that. But and the long and short of it is, I manifested this trip to Jamaica. And when I was there, I there was this guy that was walking up and down the beach. And if I'm getting us too off course, just
No,
reel me back.
I think we're good.
Okay, so there was this gentleman walking down the beach, and I couldn't really see exactly what I was looking at when he was first approaching on the first day that we were there. But I come to find out it was this gentleman, and he had a crutch in one leg and a guitar. Okay, and from a distance, it looked really odd. Like, I'm like, what the hell am I looking at here? I couldn't figure this out. You know, what was going on? There was this movement. I couldn't figure it out. But anyhow, the closer he got, I realized what I was seeing. And this man, and I talk about him, and I get that shoot right up my back, and every time it never fails. But he instilled something in me, and I'll get to that. But this guy walked past, and he just looked at me, and I looked at him, and I thought, this is weird. You know, something was weird. And I didn't understand what was happening, Megan, but I just knew I was so intrigued by this man and his crutch and had to be a 70-some year old Rastafarian. You know, I mean, the big gray dreads. He was very Jamaican. Okay. So day one, now we were on a 4-mile beach, and he would walk up that beach and down that beach twice a day with his guitar. That's how he made his money. And do you know how hard that is to walk with a crutch with one leg? And, you know, as soon as you put that crutch down on the sand,
I don't know how to do it with one leg, but yes.
Yeah, when that crutch goes into the sand, it's sinking. Yeah. So the strength that he had for 4 miles up and back every day, twice a day, I was so enamored by this man that I every day I looked for him. So day 2 he comes, and I'm looking, where's my dude, and I would just watch him. I never hollered for him at all. The one day he goes by, I was in the water, and every time that he got in front of us, he would stop and he would look. Really? He never came to us to play for us. He never, tried to ask us to spend money or nothing. He never did that. He would just stop and he would look, and it was always looking right at me. Like, and I'm like, okay, this guy's weird, but whatever. So when I got into the water, it was like day 3, maybe, he came by and he stopped, and I saw him scan the crowd, and I wasn't there. And he turned around and he looked into the water, and then he went, like this.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay. I didn't wave to him or anything, but it was just like we were locked in.
Yeah,
all right?
a connection.
The entire week we were there, I was locked into this guy. That night that I was in the water, we had gone to dinner, and we were in this like little shack, and 12 of us, there was a group of us. So I look over, and here comes the one-legged man, comes walking into the shack, and he sits down, and I wanted to tell the waitress I wanted to buy his dinner. All right. But by the time she got to me, he was gone.
Oh.
It's like he came in, he had a drink, and he bounced. And so I was kind of really bummed out, because I really felt heavy on my heart that I wanted to do something for this man. I don't even know where it was coming from, but I just felt the urge, Yeah. So, this happened every day. Come to the last night that I was on the island, he comes walking by, and we were all packing up to go to dinner. And I said, I just want to sit by myself on the beach for a minute. I just want to take this beauty in one more time before the sun goes down. And sure enough, here comes my guy. He comes walking down the beach. And I'm like, I'm not letting this moment. There's nobody else here. I'm not letting the moment go by. And I waved him down, and he came over, and he stood in front of me, and I had my phone, right? I use my crystal as my phone. So I had my phone and I was going to record the whole situation. I could not. My phone fell from my hands, and I could not, I physically could not pick the phone back up. I mean, if I tried, I couldn't. I'm like, I could not go for my phone. And I just stood there and I watched this man sing to me. I have no idea what song he sang. Honestly, I have no clue. It didn't matter. He could have been singing the ABCs for all I knew at that time. I had no idea. Tears were just flooding down my face. I mean, it was like water just was pouring out of my eyeballs. And when it was over, he came over to me and he grabbed my hand. And of course I paid him, and I, thanked him and blessed him, and, very grateful. I've had my eye on you all week. And he grabbed my hand and he held it. And then he took his other hand off the crutch and he put it on top of my hand. So now he has both of my hands like this, right?
Yeah.
And he says, my lady, what is in me is in you. That is a very,
oh my gosh.
That's a very common saying in Jamaica. All right.
Okay.
So it's, kind of like their greeting, their what's up, whatever. But I said, thank you, of course. And I just nodded my head, and he said, no. And he grabbed my hands again and he held them tight, and he said, what is in me is in you. And he just stood there and he stared at me with them creepy Rastafarian eyes. I mean, it was so weird. It was so weird, and it was so beautiful at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I was standing there and I was just frozen, and I was crying so hard. And he, we blessed each other, and he moved on down the beach, and I stood there and I just watched him walk away. And when I came home, anytime I talk about that man to this day, I get that zing through my body.
As I am noticing,
Every time.
There is a bunch of other people who have chills, including me, and I cannot stop crying.
Oh, because he was a blessing. And I had talked to a few people about this incident because, it doesn't sound as profound. It's one of those you had to be there kind of things. But it was, when I talk about him, and it's not as strong as it was, in the early years of that incident happening, but something happened. And I remember talking to one of my counselors once about this situation, and he said to me, Kelly, want you to think about something. What if that man's entire journey, all of his trials and tribulations, were meant for that one moment on that beach with you?
Yeah.
That those words that he spoke, I'm going to cry, that those words that he
Join the
spoke,
club.
I know, that those words that he spoke to you were what his purpose in this life were for.
Yeah.
He could have been the greatest messenger in your life.
Yep.
And, when I got back from Jamaica is when everything started to change. And of course you had my family going, you got voodooed. They voodooed you. Why are you leaving your husband? And I'm like, this is not that.
Yeah.
This is so far from that. It was a beautiful thing.
And one of the words that came to me when he said that, what is in me is in you, is strength. And courage. This guy is overcoming insurmountable odds, and he's doing these things. And, I know that's really, that's the more physical aspect of it, I think. But, in terms of those characteristics beyond the metaphysical, but I totally see those things in you.
Oh, thank you.
And
you're right. You're right. I felt that from him too, because like I said, all week I just sat there and I calculated this man, and I tried to understand his story, and I intuited him. That's what I realized I was doing now.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really get it then.
Yep.
But I get it now, that I was literally tapping into him as he was tapping into me, and he felt me.
Yeah.
That's why he was looking at me each day that he came by there. So I love him. I have no idea what his name is, but I know that he has been one of the most impactful people in my life and in that moment. And that just goes to show us all strangers. You never know when you're entertaining angels. It's
Totally.
true. You
Totally.
know, you never know.
There's, I've been reading this book. It's Uncharted, I think, by Colette Baron Reid.
Okay, I love her.
Well, I do too. I have her cards. I have, a bunch of other things, but I've never read her books. And one of them was like a $2 special or something. And I'm like,
Nice.
I'm getting it. And I've been reading it ever since. And she told this story about buying a house and how serendipitous it really was for her. And her husband was kind of like, yeah, I don't really, I usually believe the things that you talk about with spirit guiding you and things like that, but this isn't it, So he was kind of in a denial zone. But then this is something that I want to explore further, but she knew, she already had her symbols for specific guides of people in her life who had passed. So like a dragonfly and a butterfly. And I have some of that, but not as acutely attuned as hers. But it changed her husband's mind about this place that she said, this is the one, because she had gotten all of these signs that she was paying attention to. And her husband knew about the symbols, so he saw some of those signs too, and he's like, okay, right, I get it, and so went along with it. But my point is, once I read those stories, it reminded me of times in my life where you had said earth angel, and I know I've been put in an earth angel position. Some of them are really significant. There was one was a little boy that we saw running towards a busy highway, and we had to, it was when we were new in this house, and I was exploring back roads, but my husband was driving, and we passed one of the roads, and I made him turn around, and then we went this other way, and had we not done that, we wouldn't have seen this boy. And my husband wasn't going to, not that he's a bad guy, I think he just didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I'm like, stop the car, and I get out, and I befriend this little boy, and he only spoke Spanish, which I didn't know how to speak. And, but he trusted me. Aww. and we walked, and I had no idea where he lived. There were some apartments nearby, but it was down a hill and stuff, but we went there, and his mother was looking for him. and so they were reunited. But there was another time, this was the one that really gets me, is, I had my last job in a company. I had quit, but there was another person that my former boss was going to hire, and he asked if she could talk with me. And so we talked and stuff, and we stayed connected for a little while, even though that's not really what I've normally done when I've left a position and other people have filled the spot. But her and I kept connected, and then we kind of lost touch for a while. And then out of the blue, she calls me, and she's like, she knew that we had adopted or were looking to adopt. No, we had adopted, and so she knew that. So she calls me out of the blue and said, do you know anybody who is interested in adopting domestically? And I'm like, no, but what's going on? And she had said that somebody in her family, kind of a person, like a friend of an uncle or something like that, it was kind of a distant thing, but that something happened where this child is going to be put up for adoption, right? And they wanted to do it privately, and all of the things aside from that, I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to get my daughter from school, so let me see what I can think of, and I'll contact you later. So we go to school, and we talk to our daughter's teacher, who asked me some questions about some other aspect of adoption. She's from Britain, older than us, and I didn't make any connection at the time, but then I had said something like, she was talking about a friend who was going through this process, and it had been 2 or 3 years of a process that just never seemed to be going anywhere. And I said, that's really interesting, because somebody just called me about this thing. And she said, oh, really? So, she gave me the name of the person who was going through this process, and I touched base with her. But ultimately, I connected these people together, and that adoption happened.
Nice.
I never
Good job, Megan.
I never met the woman who and her family who adopted this child. I never met the child themselves. I just was the conduit.
You were the conduit. That's absolutely right.
But
you were that little spark of divine light that needed to be connected to somebody else, that needed to be connected to somebody else. And that's what I feel about my Jamaican man.
Yep.
I feel like he was a divine light that needed to spark me.
And I absolutely love those stories. I love personally being in that
Yes,
position too, but also
absolutely.
it's like the people in my life who have done that too. So, I mean, that's
Right.
just, I love these
Yeah,
stories.
I do too. And I think that, they're so readily available to us. I
Yeah.
don't know how to say that right, but they are so readily available to us when we pay attention,
Yes. And
you
that whole
know?
thing about paying attention is such an important piece. And, that's to me, I mean, being in the present is important, but I've never really been one until more recently to be there. I mean,
Yeah,
my default is in the future. It always has been. In part, maybe
right.
that's an escapist coping mechanism with the present. Not that it's been that bad
Survival.
for me, but yeah, that whole
Right.
survival thing. But it's the moments in the present that then make me aware of these things that otherwise would very easily pass. Um,
Yeah, you get too caught up and we
yeah.
get, they swing right by us and it's like we're missed opportunity,
Yep.
And when we can stay centered and even in that, you know, we all go through tumultuous times,
Yeah.
we're human, it's going to happen. But especially during those times, I feel like, it's hard. And I say that delicately because I'm going in that roller coaster of ebb and flows right now, with our family situation. But
Yeah.
I still am trying to manage to find that peace so that I can pay attention
Yeah.
to what's out there, and I think about that Jamaica guy a lot of times. And I honestly feel like and I hope this does not offend anybody, but I honestly felt like I was in the presence of Jesus
Yeah.
in that man.
I was thinking
Like,
angel, so yeah.
yeah, I mean, I really felt like Jesus just stepped into that dude and
Yeah.
was like, "You listen, you got this," And it was so funny too because when I
Yeah.
came home, we went in early December to Jamaica, and I had scheduled a group reading for a few friends of mine with a medium friend that I have. She lives down in Maryland, and she was coming up to Pittsburgh. After I got back from the trip, I made these arrangements to have this group reading at my house. And only thing that she knew was that I had gone to Jamaica, for my 40th birthday. That was it. Well, when I was my turn for being read, she had told me, she said, "You had a spirit guide in Jamaica with you." And I was like, well, I kind of felt my grandmother there. It was like one of those, like, I feel like my grandmother because there was a whole nother incident in Jamaica where we were kind of like rescued by this old taxi cab driver. And my grandmother was a taxi cab driver. And so it was really weird. Like, I'm thinking, is my grandmother stepped in here to take care of the situation? Because I could see it happening. But so I'm assuming, she's talking about my grandmother's spirit. And she's like, "No, Kelly." She's like, "This spirit was on land. Like, this spirit was here. You had a spirit guide that was living." She asked me, "Who did you meet in Jamaica?" And I said, "I didn't meet him. I just encountered him." She goes,
Yeah.
there was a spirit guide that was alive and on land that was with you the entire time you were in Jamaica. He had his eye on you. And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, yes, I did." So I would love to get back and find that man. I don't know if he's still here or not someday, but I would, it's just one of those things in my heart. Like, my heart is always going to be connected to that gentleman.
Yeah. Well, so
So,
I was thinking about the movie City of Angels, which I haven't seen in years and years and years. And
oh,
there's
I
two
haven't seen that
versions
for
of it.
years. Yeah.
There's an older version that Julie had shown me, and I think she might be here now. So hi, Jules.
Hi,
But
Jules.
she had shown me, and I think was it French or German or something like that. And then the other one
Oh,
is like Nicolas Cage and Meg
yeah.
Ryan, I think. But
Right.
I've thought about that a lot because I've encountered people in my life who have inspired me in such a short time, and it's always seemed like a strange relationship. Like it's not a traditional
Right.
relationship. And
Right.
so there's somebody who sparked all kinds of awakening related things to me. And I have wondered time and again if that person was really an angel in disguise
Mm-hmm.
because it's also like I would very much like to reconnect with that person and it's almost impossible to do it. It's just not
Right.
it's not possible.
and I can't go find my Jamaica guy. I mean, I'm like banned from the island now. I mean, not by law.
I know you're not.
The law has not banned me. Let me clear that up. That would be a sucky place to be banned from.
No kidding. Oh my gosh.
But I can't, because of health concerns. I can no longer go to the island, and it makes me really, really sad.
Gosh.
But so, and it's just weird. Like, I'll never, maybe someday, I don't know. But as of right now, I have no means of finding my earth angel at this point, and I don't think I'm meant to. It was just meant to be what it was, and the message was delivered, and the spirit was flowing through me. It was so cool too, because after he walked away, and I had to sit there for a few minutes. Like, I was late to dinner and everything, because I was just like, what the hell just happened here? But I had snapped the pictures. He was like walking down the beach, and I was trying to get a picture of him, but the one picture that I totally was jacked up, there was an orb, Julie or Megan, about this big. And I was there with my best friend, Julie, too. And she, so funny, right? But there was an orb, and it was blue, and it was yellow, and it was green, and it had all these little swirls in it. And it was just there beside me on the beach. Just there beside me on the beach. Gosh. So, and it not just like the blue orb that we get from our iPhones. It wasn't like that at all. This was a clear, it was like, in the picture, it was about that big. So it was definitely something went down with that Jamaica man. Yeah. And I love him. That's so wonderful.
I was going to say, you had said that, it's important to pay attention, and I totally agree with that. But I do think that also being receptive to, to the guidance, to the nudges, all of those things is another necessary component, because you can be present, but if you're still closed off to the intuitive side, or the choice, the nudges for choices,
right. Absolutely. And because they are there. I mean, they're constantly there, it's constantly there, and opening up your mind to opportunities. I had one mentor tell me one time, and I remind myself of this. Kathy Sue Sylvester pays attention too, because last year during the Bliss Retreat, I had made the comment that I'm an opportunist, and that can sound shady, or it can sound that's what one of my mentors told me many years ago. She said, be an opportunist. Look for the opportunities to embrace you and your love for the world. Look for opportunities to show yourself to the world. Look for opportunities to make a change in the world. Look for opportunities to touch somebody. Look for opportunities to help somebody. There's opportunities everywhere, all around us, all the time. And being an opportunist doesn't mean you're the shadester, like, hey, what do you want? Like a lot of Jamaicans I saw when I was in Jamaica, not like that. It's being consciously aware of your present moment, and always look for the opportunities in that moment.
So I can barely see because I'm tearing up so much. And a part of that is because you're my messenger. I just yesterday,
thank you.
Yesterday I would, I don't exactly remember where I was when I received this information, but one of them was, you're an opportunist. And I have thought of myself as an opportunist, but more so in the negative way. Like, I see opportunities and I go for it, and maybe that's a bad thing. And so thank you for setting me straight with
you're welcome.
the meaning for that, because
Thanks,
I wasn't going in that direction. So I really, really appreciate that.
No, and it's true, because, and you don't want to sound too proud saying that, but be an opportunist. Be an opportunist. Everybody out there, be an opportunist. Look for opportunities. There's always an opportunity to choose right from wrong. There's an opportunity to do good or bad. There's an opportunity to help or not help. And when we miss those opportunities, the next one's going to be there. It's going to be around the corner. But how many times have you sat? I know I have. I speak for myself, but how many times have I sat and like, damn it, I missed that opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, I should have said that. Or, you know,
Yeah.
or why didn't I step in? Or why didn't I go save the kid from crossing the street? Or
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, you know? Like I had a broken crow out here a few months back when I first moved into my new house here. And there's a broken crow out there on the side of the road. And I thought, okay, you could just let well and well be, you know, circle of life kind of thing. I couldn't, because that was an opportunity for me right then and there to make a difference. And if it was in Poe the Crow's health and well-being, then I took the opportunity. And guess what? I've had crows all around my house now, right? And I've been finding things outside my door. And I'm not going to guarantee they're from the crows.
Oh, but they probably are.
But I'm not going to rule it out either, you know, because I took an opportunity to do something good for Gaia, and I feel like they're protecting me in return.
Well,
so
just so you know, I mean, for whoever saw the show, I think it was the last show I had, which was on last Thursday, but I read a good news story about a man in England who came across an injured seagull. And he knew that the seagull wouldn't make it unless he did something. So he fed it some of his dog treats that he had with him. And he came back every day to feed this seagull until it was better. And that seagull now visits him every time he's on the beach. So he's on the beach with his dog. The seagull comes and hangs out with him. And he's like, the seagull doesn't go to anybody else. And none of his seagull friends will come and see me. But this one visits me every single day.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And my neighbors think I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? Because I'm out there in the front yard and I got a little cage around Poe the Crow and I'm trying to give him food.
That's so wonderful.
You know, taking care of him and helping him get back on his feet. I think he got hit. Like he must have got grazed by a car or something because he was all shaken up. But so I kind of nursed Poe the Crow back to health. I hope he made it. I say yes, he made it, and he's told all his friends that I'm one of the good witches in the neighborhood. So I don't know, but it's, you know, you want to look for opportunities because they're all around us.
Definitely.
So be an opportunist, Megan. Be an opportunist.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
I love that. You helped anchor that message in such a positive way. I'm going to go out and find opportunities everywhere.
Yay, opportunities. They're there.
Wow.
They're there.
Man, I don't think I've cried so much in a positive way during one of these mashups as I have today. And this is the one day out of, I don't know, I have rarely ever put mascara on, but I did today. It's like,
I did
probably
too,
as a joke, you know. It's like,
that'll teach you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I just kind of felt like it. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're going to pay. But that's okay. That is okay.
Oh, I totally enjoyed this. And I just want to tell you too, I'm so grateful and you know, we've kind of been through the lab together, you know, through a lot of the programs and development circles and whatnot. And I love how you do your show. I love it.
Thank you.
I really do. And like I told you yesterday, I would like to actually, you know, in my group, start doing something similar to this to help everybody kind of learn and network with one another and be able to look for opportunities that, you know, others may be able to help them with. Yeah. So you are a great way shower in that respect. So thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you for saying that. And I appreciate it. I just want to make more connections with people, but also between people. I want more heartfelt conversations, you know, and
yes, girl.
You know, get that. The surface is so easy, and I want more. You know, I want depth.
Yes,
absolutely. Affords us that opportunity, and others who are listening to really get to know other members of the lab as well, which I think is just a really important, but also just joyful thing. So thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. And rightfully do. So
excellent.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I'll try. So we have 15 minutes left. So we still have some time for another topic if there's anything you'd like to, or if you didn't feel you finished your story. And otherwise, I have a question for you if you can't think of anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot in my little timeline. I'm sure I can pull something out, but definitely if you want to go ahead and ask your question, what's that about?
Well,
Let's go
I'm
there.
curious about the time when your friend Lisa gave you Louise Hay
Mhm.
and it basically changed your life. If there was an epiphany or aha moment that you remember, something really profound that shifted your thinking.
Whoa.
Yep. Love that
There
book.
she is.
Yep.
Yes. Um, you know what I did with this whenever, because what happened was I had lost my job and I had this sitting still unopened. It was May.
Ooh,
Okay. I got it for Christmas
waiting for the right time.
and it was sitting on my shelf when I got let go was in May. And so I probably didn't pick it up until a few months after that, like maybe when school started, because I had the summer off and we were camping and, being unemployed, loving life. And
Yeah.
I started with the CD, with the audiobook, because I have commitment issues with books. I love books. And if I flip the screen right now, you would see my bookshelf is full and full of books. I love them. But I do have some commitment issues at times with reading. um, but so I got the audio and it said to listen to this audio CD for 45 days and, just keep doing it over and over and over again. And I said, okay, if I can I'm going to do this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to listen. I'm in the car a lot. I can listen to this. And I think I was probably on day about 21 or 22 into this. And, a lot of what she was saying was making sense. But the one thing that I realized that, around the affirmations was my self-talk was so not what Louise Hay's self-talk was supposed to be. They were very conflicting, right? So I started paying more attention to that. Not even my talk, but just like my thoughts. Where are my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts going? What do I spend most of my time thinking about?
Yep.
And I had realized that being an anxious mind, an anxious child, an anxious young adult, an anxious grown-ass adult, my thoughts in my head were so filled with anxiety all the time, and so learning for me with those positive affirmations that she encouraged to, practice was such a shift in my brain. Like for my neuro center up there, like it was such a shift from going from constantly, what I realized was I was constantly preparing for
Mm-hmm.
the demise of my future.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No matter what. No matter what it was, I was preparing for everything that was going to go bad. But that was a pattern and it was a trained behavior. It was a learned behavior, I should say, because of my mom's illness.
Yeah.
I learned to be afraid every day. I learned to be prepared every day. Who's the first person I'm going to call if I find her dead? Who am I going to
Wow.
live with if I find her dead? What if I come home from school today and I find her dead? Who am I going to call first? Like I was constantly in preparation mode. I was like a doomsday of my own life.
Oh.
And it was a really hard thing for me to shift that to start saying positive things in my head versus all the negative exploration of everything that was going to go wrong. you
Yeah.
know? So on day about 21 or 22, I can remember exactly where I was. I was driving on a local road here nearby, and there's a row of trees, and one's a white tree, one's a pink tree, one's a white tree, one's a pink tree, and it was February, so there was no really colors going on.
Yeah.
But I do remember it being February, and I remember going past that when all of a sudden, whatever Louise had said at that moment, and I'm not even clear what it was, because again, I'd been listening to this thing now for 20 some days, but right in that moment, right by that row of trees, everything just looked different.
Wow.
Everything. I mean, the trees looked greener. The grass looked different. You know what I mean? The sky looked different. And I rolled the window down and the air felt different. Like everything just kind of clarity just became clear. I now had clarity and I felt like somebody just took that blind and it went up and I could see the world in a different color now. And it was beautiful. And nothing's been the same. Nothing's been the same since. Nothing's been the same since.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Seeing the world in a different color. I love the way that you word that. That's what I'm writing down right now because it's going to be in there. But
it's true. It's true. It's like I came back to life. Maybe in that moment. I'm not really clear exactly what happened. I just know that in that moment, after what do they say, 21 or 28 days it takes to create a habit?
They say 21. Well,
But
I believe that 21 days to change a habit is okay for some habits, probably the ones we don't have ingrained in our brains for life.
Right.
Or, haven't spent a lifetime building. For the smaller things, I think that's fine. But it does take longer for others. But then again, for yours, you were very consistent in listening to this over and over again. And I think that probably can help to create a shift. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, the shift happened in that moment. And I just remember thinking, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful planet. Honestly, it's like the dead of winter here. And I'm like, this is freaking beautiful. This place is gorgeous. And there was a moment or two, I cannot tell a lie, that I had some walk-in thoughts around my whole shifting, but I realized now that it was just my spirit was weakened. It was sleepy. It was stagnant.
What it seems to me is that at first, the default thinking process was negative or in preparation for something, the other shoe to drop. And then that shifted to more positive thinking with occasional, setbacks.
Exactly.
So the default has changed for you.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And even now, things are not easy in my space right now. I'm a busy girl.
Oh my gosh.
As you mentioned. But and the family stuff that we have going on, and our dynamics are changing. And even so, I get pissed and I spout off but I'm now utilizing my throat chakra more, which is good. I am, being able to speak my piece and say what I need to say, and then kind of come back to a centered space. Takes sometimes a few days or hours, depending on what the situation is. But I have still learned to find peace in those moments of shit storms. Still can find the peace in the moments of the shit storms, then I think you're doing all right,
Yeah.
And we all have it.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that sometimes for me, speaking from my experience, I get down on myself when I feel like there's a setback in my thinking process. If I get angry or upset about something, throw my little, tantrum thing, what is it with technology, or something like that. Especially acute during tax time for me. It was like, what is, the smallest thing would set me off. And I'm like, why? Usually I'm a pretty laid back, mellow person. And now all of a sudden, all these things are just, bugging me.
Right.
And, but instead of really getting on my case, that may happen, but it only happens for a very short period of time before my thinking starts to change in a more positive, loving, compassionate way. And I'll attribute some of that to Lauren Antrofermo, who's really brought forth some of that Inner Body of Light program. But, that whole, I think it was just the other day where I had noticed, not as profoundly as you, but that my thinking has changed. It's shifted. Where I used to be an angry person all the time. Now, it still seeps in there every now and again, but I let it through, and it goes away.
Right. And that's it. You kind of let it come in. And, I'm learning this even more now in the past month, I'd say, because we've had a few ups and downs here. And this time, this week's ups and downs versus 2 weeks ago's ups and downs is a little bit better. And so each time we learn, we're all human, and we're here to learn those things, and we're here to be able to control our reactions as well. And at times, we do get thrown back into that into that old survival mode, and our old defenses come up, and our old, patterns of behavior may surface and show themselves to you. But now we can see it.
Yep.
Like I can tell you, like I lost my shit a few weeks ago, and I own it. I did.
Yeah.
I kind of went off the chain for a minute and let somebody have all of my thoughts and feelings. Right there they went. And then I was so mad at myself afterwards. Like, I am so mad at myself that I let that happen. But in that moment, Spirit came right through and was like, stop judging it.
Yeah.
You had to meet that individual where they were.
Yeah.
Because you having that discussion with where you are they're not going to hear that. So I say I got thrown into the low zone. So I had to get thrown into the low zone because guess what? I know the low zone. I've been there. I survived there for a lot of years in the low zone. But now that I've kind of, am raising my vibration and changing things that I want to do better, I can't meet that individual where I'm at here, so I had to kind of get thrown back into the low zone, and Spirit reminded me, don't judge yourself for that. You did what you had to do, and let's have a little bit of compassion for yourself regarding that.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point. It's a really, there are times when I get thrown into that low zone too. And I notice that there's a different vibration, not trying to feel superior or anything like that, but that
not at all.
They cannot hear me when I'm in my bliss.
No, that's right. That's right. And sometimes we had to come from the low zone, I believe. Yeah. We had to come from that low zone so that we know how to deal with those individuals that aren't evolving at the same time and rate that we are, or to help guide them. Yeah. Like, hey, I might be vibing up here and you might be vibing down here. But when there's conflict or whatever, we got to either meet in the middle or you got to come down, because, and one of my teachers showed me this one day. He said, stand up on that chair. And I did. And he said, now pull me up there. And I couldn't get him up there. He said, now.
That's so good.
He grabbed me by the hand and he pulled me right off that chair. He said, I want you to see how much easier it was for me to pull you down into this low zone than it was for you to pull me up. He said, so remember how easy it can be to get pulled back down into the low zone all the while you're trying to pull people up. Yeah. They have to do that on their own. You can't pull a grown ass man up into the high zone when he's still anchored in the low zone.
Despite our best intentions, it just doesn't work that way. You're right.
Like beat your head against the wall, So.
Well, Kelly, I am just so thankful for your being here with us today. Of course, I'm going to invite you back for a second round. Probably be a while, but definitely have you back because you're just a joy to talk to.
Oh, and thanks, Megan.
I've enjoyed this conversation.
About you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. So just with our last remaining minute, I want to let people know about the next, our next show is on Saturday, March 2nd with Rita Krikorian-Gazarian.
Ooh, Rita.
I know it's going to be a really fun conversation too. And so that's next 2 weeks, Saturday, 12 o'clock Central. So I hope to see you and everybody here. There too. Yes. And just stay tuned for show notes, which will be posted sometime later this afternoon. And if you're interested in the replay without all the fun, fluffy stuff that I do at the beginning, and you want to hear this conversation again, I post the replay on my website and Facebook page. So please check those out, or subscribe to the Facebook page. Facebook page for updates.
Facebook.
And I love your cat.
All right.
This is the one who likes the stardom.
Well, this is Mr. Zip Zap. Say hi, Mr. Zip Zap. He's so sexy.
Hi, Mr. Zip Zap. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thanks so much for joining us. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye, Kelly.
Bye, everyone.